Hi guys, and welcome back to the second episode of Tips and Tricks, where we go a little bit more into detail with different materials. Where later on we will also do a little bit about fly casting and different fishing techniques, but since we're still in the winter, we're going to be focusing a little bit more about fly tying. And in this episode we're going to talk about feathers and hackle, but not just hackle per se, but we're going to be talking a little bit about materials that is normally not considered as being used for a hackle, and then there's materials that is the other way around. It's never really thought about as a tail material or something like that. Main focus is going to be streamer and salmon flies, because that's mostly what I do. There is also, of course, choosing the right hackle for dry flies, flimps, stuff like that. But we are going to be focusing choosing the right feathers for streamers and salmon flies. So we're going to start with something that most of us know about. It's called marabou. And these kind of feathers are often considered as materials for tail of a fly or streamer, or classic wing on a streamer fly like this, or a tail. But it's also very good using as a hackle. And I'm going to show you a fly. This is called a popsicle. It's a steelhead fly. This is marabou that is hackled. And as you can see, you create a lot of volume and very soft materials moving around a lot. This is very good when you're fishing slow currents or still waters as well, where small movements will create movements in the fly. If you compare that to stiffer materials, which is good where you have stronger currents or faster water, this kind of fly will, in a very hard current, will more or less just look like this. But as soon as it passes out, this will pulsate up. And how this is used, you can tie that in and then just start hackling, but then you will get a lot of volume. If you want to create a shrimp fly, this is also a good material if you're doing famous pattegris, is it called. It's a Scandinavian sea trout fly. It's a shrimp pattern. If you don't have those expensive whiting or different kind of spay hackle, this is actually a good substitute. If you clean one of the sides here, and then attach that, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to attach this thread. Now, right now I have a tube here. I'm going to change that to a hook real quick. This, of course, the marabou is available in many different colors, just as any other material. But it is a very cheap and very good material if it's used correctly. This is also something you can, for example, this is easily used as dubbing. If you just pushed it together like this is also very easy to dub, like so. As you can see, it's all awesome as a dubbing, and you can mix in a little bit of flash materials and stuff like that as well. So this is a way to use the leftovers. But otherwise, I'm going to show you quickly the hackling with these feathers. I'm not being very picky here now, I'm just going to show you. As you can see, if I would go, now I'm going in the wrong way, but I'm just going to show you when you're dividing a few laps over the body, you can easily create a pretty decent shrimp fly, or those spay hackle effects. So if I would cut there just to show you, this is pretty nicely like a spay hackle. So that's a way to use marabou feathers, or several ways to use it, as classic tail, or you use it as a wing, dubbing, and you can also use it as hackle. I'm just going to clean this a little bit. Don't do this if you have a brand new scissor. This is my cut everything scissors, so I'm not particularly taking care of that one anymore. Another material that is in the marabou area, it's called shikabu, which is also a little patch of, it's almost like a little saddle or neck. And these are filled with tiny marabou feathers. And I'm gonna take one out here just to show you. This is also a very cool material you can use in different ways. Mostly it's used as tails, for example, for woolly buggers, like this. Or this one as well. If you're taking a feather that has thinner tips, you will get a more slim tail. But this is very easy. I'm gonna show you. You attach it like that, and you can just tie the feather straight on. There you have a tail, which you easily can adjust by pulling. Well, not if you attach it too much, but you can see it's a very easy way to get a very nice tail for your woolly bugger flies, or other flies, of course, as well. But I'm just gonna cut it. But it's a very good material, and that's mostly how it's used, just as a tail. But you can also use this as hackle in salmon and sea trout flies, where you want to have more volume, a little bit materials for slower currents, or rivers that has a very even current, where you want to have a little bit more movement in the material itself. Softer wings, softer hackles, and especially if you're using these kind of discs. So just as the other marabou feather or any other hackle, really, you're doing the same thing here. You just attach that, and you can easily create a very soft hackle. So marabou patch or shikabu patch, it's tiny marabou feathers. Mostly used for streamers, but also good for some salmon flies. Okay, now I'm gonna go into a little bit more the choosing of hackle, body hackle and collar hackle, front hackles on salmon flies, and or body hackle as well. We can talk the final thing about streamers and choosing a body hackle. As you can see on these two, if I'm comparing that woolly bugger to this one, it is a big difference in the hackle. How this has way more filling, or much more full. This is very thin, more discreet. This is rooster neck, like this, and this is from a rooster saddle or a soft hackle patch. Those fibers has more volume, they're thicker, a little bit softer, but they still have the capability of keeping its shape. It's not like a hen saddle, for example, that those hackle we call a little bit more wet. They're easily losing its structure. These feathers tend to keep their shape much better. So I'm going to show you one feather from a classic rooster neck. Let's see, I can take this one. It's a little bit damaged here, but as you can see when I'm pulling this up, it is very thin and very not stiff, but it keeps its structure very much. Then it comes down here, it gets a little bit softer, but the problem I'm going to show you with a nice feather. That one was not very good. Okay, we'll take this one up. When I'm opening all the fibers like this, now you can see when I'm bending this one, when it starts to get to the area where you have more volume in the fibers, the stem gets very stiff. This is not very user-friendly when you're hackling the body. So what you're going to use here is mostly this part, which is soft and easily maneuvered without cracking. This will easily break when you're coming down to this stiffer parts. But it's very good for woolly buggers, shrimp flies, streamers, also salmon flies, where you want to have very slim or very discrete profiles with a very little material, for example. This can be very good. Just a few wraps of that can create a very nice fly. And I'm going to show you, for example, this fly is tied with rooster neck, and it's used two different hackles, but you can still see it has not that much volume really. While this one is used, we have used soft hackle patch, and this creates way more volume with less wraps of the feather. This one has two hackles, easily 4 wraps of orange and blue, while this just has 3 or 4 maybe wraps of one color, and creates more volume. So everything depends on choosing the right hackle, depends on what style you like or what kind of fly you want to tie. My two personal favorites are rooster saddles or soft hackle patches for my salmon flies. I'm going to show you in comparison to this. A feather from a soft hackle patch still, you see, it has a lot of volume in the fibers, but it still keeps its shape. It's not easily losing its shape in the current. It will still have the shape that you're creating. For example, this would just collapse in harder currents, while this will keep its shape. So this is a very good material. This, for example, is also possible to make more dense woolly buggers where you want to have more volume. This is also a very good option, the soft hackle patches. Why I personally most of the times use rooster saddles is because, in my personal opinion, it has the best of two worlds, and I'm going to show you what I mean about that. First of all, it is rooster, so you still have that those thin, shiny and stiff fibers. But then when the hackle or the stem is still soft, you're starting to get more volume. As you can see, you're getting structure close to the soft hackle patch. So if I'm cleaning this, and I will show you how it looks, as you can clearly see, it has thin and stiffer fibers, and as you come down here, it's still very easily used, but you're having that a little bit of extra volume that you want, especially in the front hackle of a salmon fly. Also in a woolly bugger, you can see this one, for example, is used with the saddle. You can see the body hackle and the front. In the front it is a little bit thicker, a little bit more volume. It is due to this. And one detail that is important is which you might have experienced difficult, because I remember it was very difficult for me, choosing the right length. Fiber length is one thing. On a salmon fly, for example, the hackle length should be about 1/3 of the total wing length. So you can see this goes there, 2 and 3, to create what we call a good proportion or a good looking fly that will keep that drip shape in the water. If it gets longer, it will drop the form a little bit, but this is our personal what we humans think. I don't think it's not necessarily that the salmon is looking for those things, but to create good proportion for the human eye, what we find good looking is about 1/3 of the total wing length, and it will also create a fly that moves very nicely. So that's one thing to think about, the length of the fibers, but then also the length of the feather itself. For example, if you have done a woolly bugger sometime and you coming all the way in the front and you see, I have too little, I don't have hackle enough. I would personally recommend you have a little bit too much or too long feather, because you can always abort or make it shorter or attach it before you come to the clean stem. You could attach it here, but if the stem is too or the feather is too short, you can't really add to it. So one tip is to always use a little bit extra, because you can always take off. When you come to the front here and you see I have a little bit too much, you can always do this to take a little bit off. So that's one thing. And another thing that is very important is regarding the length of a hackle or a feather is the surface underneath, the diameter of your hook or your tube. If you're doing one wrap of feather on this thick tube, it will take, how can you show you, if I'm attaching this here, it will take 2, 3, 4, and the feather's done. Now I'm going to do that on the hook here that I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see how many wraps I came around the hook compared to this. So that's also very important when you're choosing your hackle or looking at your saddle or streamer neck or whatever you're going to buy. Before you're purchasing it, you should look at the length of the fiber as well, or the feather, depending on what type of flies you're using and what type of tubes or hooks you're using. It's not that very often we hackle on the 3mm tubes, but even so, if you do so, you can see how few wraps around you actually are going to get with that feather. So taking that in consideration, you might need to take a feather that's longer, so you don't take a too short of a feather. This, for example, will barely cover it, but this will be perfect for the thinner tube or a hook. Alright, I think that's about it. Some standard things or tips about feathers. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will try to answer as good as I can. And I hope you found that this information is helping you a little bit. Because those small things will make a big difference when you're tying flies, to create more consistency in your patterns and creating flies that always looks the same. So, until next time, thank you for watching.